I think everyone in this room is really, really smart, very intelligent. You guys have dedicated a week of your lives just to do training. You've chosen to invest in yourself, and I've always believed that that's one of the best things you can do for your career. And you guys probably also know that in the short term, getting certified is the best thing you can do for your career. In fact, each certification adds roughly $4,000 to your base salary, your market value. So you guys already know this. But after this session, after you get certified, after you go home, after you unpack, hopefully, you get a nice raise from your boss. The question that's going to keep you up at night is, what am I going to do next? What path am I on in my career? Am I going the right direction? And I think, especially now in the job industry, there's so much uncertainty, right? Like, what's going to happen in 10 years, right? What's going to happen in the long term? Are we on the path towards the next big thing, or are we going to be, the next dinosaurs, like God bless them, the coal miners and all that stuff? What's going to happen? Those are the questions that keep me up at night, and those are the things that we're specifically going to talk about today. Let's make sure you're on the right path, both for what you want to enjoy and do personally, and both for long-term growth. Oi, oi. Okay, my computer turned off. Here we go. Let's get this back up.
It's because you dropped it. That's not what happened.
Here we go. Pushed it
Guys,
up.
you can make it.
All right, forward-looking statement. My name is David Liu. I work at Google, Salesforce technical architect there. We have a big Salesforce org, 61 different Salesforce orgs, terabytes of data, lots of crazy stuff. But I've worked in small and medium companies too. 4-time Salesforce MVP, have 6 certifications. Hopefully that number increases by the end of the week. And I have a website, SFDC99, where I teach people how to code. Let me talk a little bit about my career. I want you to see the ups and downs of my career, so you can learn from that and make better decisions than some of the ones I made. So I actually started my career as a professional email spammer. I went to a college that no one's probably ever heard of. It wasn't a very good college. I got a degree in marketing, and I had trouble finding my first job, but I got a job as a professional email spammer. Didn't know Salesforce, didn't know code, didn't know anything, and it was horrible. I would get hate mail all the time. People would say, I hate you, F you, and I probably deserved it because I was sending out, hundreds of thousands of emails per week. Anyways, I knew this couldn't be for me for the long term, but I got very lucky because I became my company's accidental admin, and I'm sure there's people here who also, went through that. It turned out my company used Salesforce. It was a small company, and our actual admin didn't really enjoy his job very much. And so I volunteered. I raised my hand. I was like, hey, let me do this, super boring data load. And I do that day after day after day, and then suddenly I was, the Salesforce expert in the company. But I reached a point where I had done so many things in the admin space in my company, I felt like I stopped learning, and then it was no longer as fun for me. And so I wanted to become a programmer. And so I started learning how to code, and I fell in love. I was like, wow, this is the first time in my life where I feel like I'm doing something that I was absolutely meant to do. So I learned to code, but before, I didn't know how to write a line of code, but, I worked really, really hard. I stopped, going to parties on weekends and stuff. I just focused, and fortunately, I got a job as a Salesforce developer, and I just loved it. It was fantastic. A few years passed, and I was like, all right, what's next for me? What do I want to do? I had always wanted to work at Google. And so I applied to Google. And they rejected me 10 times. Boom, 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 10 times. But every time I failed, I learned something. And then on try number 11, I got very lucky. I probably didn't deserve the job, but I got it. And once you're in, you're in. So I got my dream job. I was working at Google. I was a technical architect doing big things in our big org. And then, since then, I've won the Salesforce MVP award. And, I created my blog. I teach people how to code and all that. Great. So, as you can see, I've been all over the place. In fact, I've made the transition into each of the 3 main Salesforce career paths: admin, developer, and technical architect. But I'll be the first to tell you that I got super lucky. Like if I didn't go to work on one day, this could be completely different, it could have gone any direction. But looking back, what I want to teach you is, now that I've done everything, here are the pros and cons of each of the paths, and here is how you can choose your path and force yourself onto that path without needing to get lucky. How to do it the foolproof way. So that's what we will talk about today. Let's start with a quiz. Here's how a quiz is going to work. It's going to be a question. It's going to be 3 colors. Each color is going to have an answer. Choose the answer that's best for you in your perfect dream world. Not what your job is today, but what is perfect for you. If everything went your way. Then, at the end, you'll have all right, 2 points blue, 2 points yellow, something like that. Note that the positions of the colors may change, all right? So make a mental note and keep track of how many points you have for each color. Question number 1. Sitting in a perfect meeting. Who else is in that room with you? It's the business. You can define the business any way you want. Is it, executives, especially a CIO? Or, do you hate meetings and you consider meetings a waste of time and you never want to join? Mental note, +1 to that color. Next question. If you have to do something for 40 hours a week, which one would you want to do? All right, moving on. It's the most interesting challenge here. All 3 of them. Which one do you like the best? Which one would you have the most fun solving? All right, keeping track. Let's go. Dream company. You can only work for one company for the rest of your life. Which one would it be? Are these questions hard, or yeah?
Is there none of the above?
None of the above?
Nonprofit needs to be up there.
Ah,
I
nonprofit.
thought you were gonna say retired at 35.
Well, you could put nonprofit in the company with the product.
Yeah,
Sure.
I put
Very
mine in
true.
yellow.
Yeah, it's the catch-all.
Yep.
All right, you have to be a master of something. Everyone wants to be a master of something. That's what they say in the job world. Everyone wants to be a master. What do you want to be a master of? Next, there's a problem at work. Nobody can solve it. What is your first reaction? Moving on. Consultants. What are your opinions of consultants?
Uh-oh, I'm in a tie right now.
Not going to tell you which one I fall in. Got in trouble talking about this one before. All right. Similar one. No one in your company can solve something. What is your first reaction? All right. Last one. Which one of these applies best to you? You guys ready for results? Have your counts?
I have a tie.
Yellow, admin. Blue, developer. Dark blue, architect.
Uh-oh.
How many people got something unexpected? A little bit. How many people got admin? Okay, developer?
What if you get a tie?
There's a tie?
I
We'll talk
actually
about
have a
that.
tie.
Architect. Oh man, all right. So if the scores were super clear cut for you, if you got like 8 points in one color, then I believe life is calling to you. Follow. I also strongly believe that you have to do what you love doing in your career, regardless of all other external factors. Now, if you got a few different colors, or if you got a few shades in between, then you got to do some planning. Then you got to start thinking, okay, I have choices, and I actually strongly believe that as professionals, we also have to work on our weaknesses. Yes, it's good to focus on things that you're good at, but you have to round yourself up. And so, over the next course of this, we'll talk about how you can choose between these three, especially if you're somewhere in the middle, or if you just want to force your way into one. All right, before we move on, any questions about the quiz or anything we talked about earlier?
What was your answer to the consultant question?
You pointed to it.
Is this being recorded? No comment. How many consultants are in this room? Or no comment.
One percent here.
All right, let's move on.
What were your certifications in your career timeline thing?
Oh, what certifications were my career timeline? So I have 6, all of like the core ones except the technical architect. This was like before there was like 24 certifications. Basically all like the admin, advanced admin, all the developer, platform.
But you got the admin one when you were admin, and then the developer one in the next job, or did you get them all just like one by one? Or?
Yeah, I did them one by one. They were spaced out, 3-6 months each. I went through the normal progression. I did the admin ones first. I think I did consultant ones next, and then I did the developer ones last. All right. Okay, 360-degree analysis of each career path. This is the good stuff right here, guys. This is the really good stuff. Let's start by defining what the 3 main career paths are in Salesforce. First one is the admin. And so these are broad generalizations, right? There's always going to be shades in between, but generally, an admin in Salesforce is someone who is like doing everything Salesforce related. You're building, process builders, validation rules, dashboards. You're meeting with, sales users. You're meeting with your service users, marketing users. You're doing data uploads, a little bit of everything except code. That's the admin. You're like almost a jack of all trades. Then there's the developer. So the developer is sort of the other half of that coin. You're spending a large portion of your time, of course, in Salesforce writing code. But I want to be clear. Every good developer is also a very good admin. So even though you're writing a lot of code, you're probably spending, an equal amount of time doing admin stuff, sharing rules, validation rules, all that stuff, because you don't want to over-engineer it with code. We can have a whole session on that. But yeah, just FYI, a lot of the developer interviews, they talk a lot about admin stuff. I spend half the interview, grilling developers on admin stuff. And then finally, we have the technical architect. So a technical architect is like a combination of like a senior admin and a senior developer. This person knows, pretty much can answer any question in Salesforce and can solve anything. And, a technical architect's skills are so desired that, they're usually seen in big companies with either, big Salesforce deployments or many integrations, or especially consulting companies. Because usually that's when you have, the most Salesforce challenges. And so, this is the person you bring in when you have something that's not easy to solve in Salesforce, when you have big projects. Okay, now let's analyze and compare these 3 paths. First criteria, money. How much money can you make as each of these 3 roles? You always have to start with this. First thing I'll say is you make a lot of money no matter which one. We're very lucky to be in the industry. Let's look at the numbers. Admin. Senior level of admin. Actually, I've seen this number. There's probably the most variety in salaries when it comes to the admin level, because and we'll go into this later, but admins can actually make much more than this amount too. You don't have to code to make a lot of money. Let's look at developer. These numbers were taken from a recruiting company called HireForce, by the way. These are average base salaries. Also from Salesforce themselves. So one thing to note about the developer salaries is you'll see on the entry and the mid-level that developers make a lot more than admins. But then you see at the senior level, it's very similar. In some ways, as a developer, there is this like invisible ceiling. You can only code so much and so well, and then at some point, like, you don't provide as much value. Being twice as fast as coding or better at coding doesn't necessarily produce twice the results when you become very good. Whereas as an admin, since you're doing sort of everything in Salesforce, and you're talking to executives and sales managers and all that stuff, you can see yourself providing a lot more value, and that's why this number is very good. Architect, also very good numbers. Entry-level architect, that is a misleading word. There's no such thing as someone who graduates college. It's like, all right, I'm gonna be an architect, and it's also, there's also like so few architects that when people post architect positions, like a lot of times they're like looking for like senior developers or something. And a lot of people who have architect titles, like me, might not actually necessarily deserve that title, and might not actually fit in that super god level Salesforce professional. Anyways, everyone makes a lot of money. We all chose the right industry. So if your numbers are not in line with this, this isn't like California numbers or something. This is like average across the US. If your numbers are not in line with this, I recommend getting certified this week, get a few more, do a little bit of research, talk to your boss at some point. Let's talk about near-term job prospects in the next 1 to 3 years. Admin. How hireable are you as an admin? You're very hireable. There's not a shortage of admin jobs in this industry. If you need one, if you're looking for one, you're gonna find one, no problem. And it's growing too. If you like to work remote, it's gonna be difficult to find a job as an admin. And the reason is, again, admins, you're talking with people in the company, you're having meetings with them. Like, face-to-face as an admin is very important. You lose a lot of that if you have someone remote. So it's difficult to find remote admin jobs. Let's look at developer. Just super crazy, ridiculously high. So there's this app you may have used or heard of, it's called Tinder. I've heard rumors of people on Tinder who are like so desirable. It's a dating app, by the way. You just swipe left, swipe right, and they match you with people. Anyways, I've heard rumors of people who are so hot, so desirable on Tinder that they no longer have to pay for their meals. They just like, all right, I'm gonna go on a dinner date with this person. It's gonna be expensive. I'm gonna get a nice meal, and and then, see ya. Tomorrow, someone else, That's kind of what it's like as a developer in the industry today. You go on LinkedIn, you change your job title to Salesforce developer. Every day you're gonna get 2-3 emails from people begging you to apply for the job. Seriously, begging you. And a lot of them are gonna be remote because you don't have to. Developers, there was that one question, like they don't really go to as many meetings. You don't have to because you have to write code. That's your primary responsibility. And it doesn't matter if you write code in-house or if you write it from Indonesia. It's still going to be code. Let's look at architect. Also ultra extremely high. In the architect track today, someone asked like, how many technical architects are there in this world? The answer is like 200. And half of them work for Salesforce. There's like 100 technical architects in the world. There's so few. And remote jobs is a little bit difficult because as an architect, you're literally meeting with the CIOs and all these things of a company. A lot of those meetings have to be done face to face. So it's going to be difficult working remote, and you're probably going to travel a lot. Any questions about this, by the way? All right, let's talk about long term. Long term is a little bit more difficult. 3 years plus. What do I mean by long term? I think right now in the industry, you're seeing a big shift in Salesforce. Over the past year, there's been like more changes in Salesforce than ever, right? You have Lightning coming out, or you have Lightning that's out already. You have Process Builder, you have flows, things that I consider like super game changers. You have Einstein. These have not been fully adopted yet, and in the short term, it'll grow. But in the long term, like that's going to be the norm. And the question is, where does an admin, developer, and an architect fit in that long-term vision? Let's look at the admin. So admins are here. This is what I believe, by the way. Like, I don't know if anyone really knows the answer to all this. If I did, I'd make a lot more money on the stock market. This is what I've seen from talking to people, other people in the industry, and based off the hiring decisions we make at Google, for example. Admins are going to continue to be very desirable. I believe admins are going to be even more powerful in Salesforce, right? Like just the jump from workflow rules to process builder was like just this enormous leap in the admin role. You used to have to write code if you wanted to create a new object, but now you just, boom, you got process builder, there you go. So admins are going to be able to provide a lot more value in terms of what they can do in Salesforce, and so it's going to continue to be good there. Developers, it's going to continue to be high. I'm not saying ultra high because it's so difficult for something to stay ultra high forever. That said, if we look at the past 4 years, it's been ultra high for developers, and I don't see that velocity actually tapering out at the moment. But the line between admin and developers is shifting a little bit, right? Because admins can do more and more. And so you don't need to code as much in Salesforce as you had to 2 years ago. That said, and also a lot of developers are coming in from other industries. .NET, all these other technologies. You go to Dreamforce, half the attendees there are brand new. Like there's just so many people jumping into this industry. That said, I think companies are going to be more ambitious with what they do in Salesforce. More integrations, more UIs. The pie in general is getting much bigger, and so developers are always going to be needed. Architects, still very high. In fact, there's a big shift going on in the industry right now also where enterprise companies are switching over to Salesforce, which is very difficult for enterprise companies. They have a lot of legacy stuff. That's changing now. Even at Google, we have a ton of systems, but we have a serious Salesforce deployment, and we're growing on it. And so there's going to be an increased need for the architect who knows how to build Salesforce in these large-scale systems. Let's look at career journeys. right? So if you're on this path, what jobs can you expect to be in the future, in the long run? We'll start with admin. I generally see them going two directions. One is a business analyst, and as a business analyst, that's sort of abstracting less within Salesforce, building reports and dashboards and stuff, more sort of managing, CRM related projects within your company, and also CRM managers, leading a team of admins and developers. I think as admins, you have a unique perspective because you work with people in the business, and that's what makes you, prime candidate to be a manager. Then from there, sort of what I consider like the end game for admins is to go into the consulting route, right? Either, join a big consultant or start your own. Many admins, they end up starting their own practices, and you see it a lot in this industry right now, and they're doing very well. It's nice. Let's check out developers. So from developer, you either sort of specialize, you either go really deep into a technology, for example, front-end technology, which is like UI technology, or you start becoming like a team lead as a developer, where you're not necessarily managing people, but you are like, the go-to person for any, questions related to, your code base. And then from there, you normally see developers either jumping into the technical architect track or just building their own product. I'm going to build my own AppExchange product. The reason why you see a lot of developers becoming technical architects, and I actually asked this question to one of the certified technical architects, our teacher. It was like, hey, what percentage of technical architects are developers? And he's like, most of them. And every certified technical architect I've known has always had a development background, just because as a developer, you see Salesforce in a different way as an admin. You're looking at it from like the deepest technical perspective. You're looking at the guts of Salesforce. And that helps you, drive, the bigger decisions when you're scaling Salesforce forward. All right, let's look at technical architect. So you're a technical architect, you're making tons of money. What's next? All right. So you stay as a technical architect. And then what? There's nothing left to do. Like, where do you've climbed Mount Everest, like, where do you go next? You just retire. That's it.
You should like write a book.
Write a book, yeah.
Start a blog.
Start a blog, write a book, give back. That's what I see a lot of technical architects do. Let's look at a day in the life. So imagine this is like your calendar. You're one of these paths. What does your calendar look like? As an admin, well, you're gonna have a lot of meetings. Blue means like this is like a meeting, right? You're meeting with tons of different people, different parts of the company. In between, you're answering emails, you're building things in Salesforce, you're doing a little bit of everything. Very busy. As a developer, it's very different. So you're not going to meetings. You're coming into work late because you don't need to be on the same timeline as like the sales team, for example, because you're not really talking to them. But it looks all nice, but like after 6 p.m. like you're still in like code mode, and like if I leave the office late at night, like there's always developers there, like just like. So that's what life as a developer looks like. And then you have architect. Architect is somewhere in between, right? On one hand, you are expected to do super high level technical designs of your org. On the other hand, you're expected to meet with executives, present your designs, and sort of pitch your technical solutions. So it's a little bit in between. Question so far? Core job skills. What job skills do you need to be very good in your path? As an admin, it's
combination of Salesforce specific skills, reports, dashboards, validation rules, process builder, as well as other things, spreadsheets, Excel, and communication, because you're going to be talking with a lot of people in your company, right? It's a little bit of everything, plus Salesforce specific skills. As a developer, it's very specific, right? You have to know specific technologies and you have to know them very well. Is communication important? Of course, definitely. But these come first. Architect. Mix of both. Mix of both. You do need, the communications, the interpersonal skills, because you're meeting with all these executives, but you also have to understand Salesforce at the deepest level. You're not necessarily going to be writing code in Salesforce anymore. That would actually be a waste of your time. But you're going to be designing large-scale systems, and then your developers and admins will build towards your design. So, okay, this one's important actually. This is another thing that keeps me up at night. Let's say something happens to Salesforce. This is what I wonder too, like every company has ups and downs, right? IBM back in the day used to be, big bad boy in the room. Google, great right now, but 10 years, 20 years, what's gonna happen to Google? It might not be nice anymore. What's going to happen if the worst of the worst happens in the Salesforce industry? How prepared is each path to pivot? Admin. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for admins. The reason is because an admin's skills on Salesforce are very Salesforce specific. You might understand Process Builder better than anyone else in the world, but that doesn't matter if you're not in Salesforce, right? That said, you are building non-Salesforce specific skills, but you will be competing with other people who have also been building those skills, and there are many of them. As a developer, it's better as a developer because coding in Salesforce is similar to coding in other languages, and picking up other languages once you understand Salesforce is relatively easy. I don't think in the foreseeable future there's going to be any programming is no longer going to be necessary. I don't think so. If anything, code is going to be even more important in the future. World's always going to need programmers. Technical architects. You're going to be in a good spot. If you look at all technical architects in the Salesforce world today, many of them before were technical architects in other industries. That's because not only does an architect understand Salesforce, but they understand Salesforce and the enterprise ecosystem, which is, it's always going to be there. So understanding that is going to make you very, very desirable no matter what industry you're in. Let's talk about bureaucracy. How much crap do you have to deal with? How much red tape do you have to deal with, in each of these paths? Well, as an admin, a decent amount, right? You're meeting with, sales, you're in the middle of everything, right? As a developer, not really. you have less sort of red tape and expectations you have to deal with there. And as an architect, you are the one creating all the policies that people hate to follow. The style guides or the naming conventions or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to join the architect track. All right, last criteria. These are game breakers, right? If any of what I say, if you agree with what's in this column, then maybe administration is not for you. Same for the rest. If you generally don't like people, don't be an admin. As a developer, if you have difficulty focusing on something for long periods of time, thinking very deeply about one problem, you're not going to enjoy being a developer. As an architect, well, you're most likely dealing with, you know, super large companies with many, many processes in place, and just, you know, being a part of that. I remember, you know, before I joined Google and I was a developer in small companies, you know, I could, oh, new Salesforce feature, you know, let's build it, let's whip it out in like a week. Then you join a big company, it's like, oh my gosh, like it's gonna take a quarter to do the exact same thing, because you gotta think about like, you know, multi-currency, like language translations, like you gotta get all the teams on board, you gotta communicate it all. That part's not always fun, but it's part of the territory if you join the architect track. Any questions about those criteria? We talked about a lot. Any question?
For the salary,
Mhm.
what was the place you got that data from?
Two places. One is HireForce, which is a Salesforce recruiting company. And I also joined that with Salesforce University has like a careers page. So if you looked at like the job outlook and the job growth, those numbers were taken from Salesforce University. I highly, highly recommend that page, by the way. Other question?
So I work in SAP. I get that certified on Monday. I went to your processing tool site and I gave a test on Monday and I passed. I was hoping that I won't pass and I give the second again, but I passed.
Hey, there you go.
So I'm doing the other two tomorrow and the after. But my question is like, so I'm an SAP developer for like last 10 years, and I'm already making like upwards of like trained to the developer range. But I started to learning the Salesforce and working on integration projects. So I adopted more and more every day. So but if I have to transition into Salesforce like full time,
Yeah.
like can anybody take me as like senior developer or I don't want to start with 70K.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be honest with you. And imagine you are applying for a developer position on my team, for example. I would see your skills from another industry as very, very good, and it would be like, okay, you know, this person has a high ceiling. But if there was another senior developer who was focused on Salesforce, you know, I would take that person, you know, 9 times out of 10. That said, it is so difficult to find Salesforce developers. Even at Google, we have Salesforce developer positions and we cannot fill them because these people are like unicorns. And then like technical architects on top of that are like you know, like super unicorns, like albino unicorns or something. Just like impossible to find. I said, you're not gonna have any problems finding a high paying job if you know how to code in Salesforce and you have at least a baseline level of knowledge. In fact, most of the Salesforce developer positions that you're gonna apply to, like the person interviewing you probably, you know, the person interviewing you probably will not know Salesforce development as well as you. And so they won't even be able to judge if you're qualified or not. That's the world we're in today. It's unbelievable. Question?
Quick question. You see a lot of the programmers outside of here, outsourcing has been a problem. You know, as, you know, companies try to cut costs, they go overseas or whatever. Do you see that? And do we talk about some of that?
Good question. Question is, outsourcing, is that a problem long-term for developers? Few answers to this. So for one, in my experience, and I know other people, I've asked people the exact same question, like an in-house developer is worth at least double a non-in-house developer, just in terms of, you know, having someone who's been there for a while, who's learned the system, and has gone through your company culture and all that stuff. Also, so I'm actually on the board of directors of a Salesforce hiring company. So like, these are things that we think about a lot. And so, you know, with the recent like presidential election, actually, and all the visas, like before for a developer, like to get someone a visa, like they have to make a certain amount of money. It's like $135,000 a year, and then they can come on board. That's changing. That number is no, I got that backwards. The number was like $80,000 a year, and now that's moving up to $130,000 a year, or that's the plan in place. It hasn't been passed yet.
And that's killing the outsourcing of developers. Because the way it works is like, I'm probably getting too deep into this, but there's like multiple layers of companies in between these outsourced developers. Like I might work with one company, it might be like Tech Mahindra or something, that has a developer, but Tech Mahindra is working with another company that's working with another company that actually manages that developer. So there's so many like layers in between, everyone's taking a cut. And so if you increase that amount from 80 to 130,000, like, you can no longer get these people visas. And that's gonna destroy the industry. So if that passes, like, it's gonna go from ultra high as a Salesforce developer to like unbelievably like crazy high. Yeah, unicorn high. I mean, beyond like it's unicorn today. Like it's just gonna go crazy. So because of that, I think the future is very good for developers. There are questions here. Question.
Perhaps you were the only technical architect at Google, but are you developing your teams to be junior technical architects? That's a funny term, I realize, but I mean, having a team, even in a big company.
Am I developing the team to be junior technical architects? You know, to be honest, I feel like any developer who's also like understands like the business trade-offs of the decisions they make is a junior technical architect. So a lot of times I look at people on my team and I'm like, this person could be a technical, like I don't understand why this person is not already a technical architect. I've never felt that about an admin on the team, actually. But for developers, definitely. Especially when you're working in an org. So the key is you have to work in an org that's huge, that has like 100 million records. Because that's when you hit certain cutoffs in Salesforce where you have to make like serious technical decisions to overcome Salesforce limits. If you're working as a developer in a small org, you're never going to encounter the challenges that a technical architect has. Does that answer your question? Other questions? Boom.
So, to go say from admin and start kind of work as technical architect, is it better to jump into the deep end and like join a big enterprise and try and get in that way, or is it better to develop the skills and then try and join?
Question is, if you are an admin, you want to be a technical architect, should I join a big company right away or should I develop my skills? I think joining a big company or a big consultancy is the best way to become a technical architect. And if you have the chance to do that, I would take it because you might not get the chance later.
I have a question.
Oh man, many questions. All right.
Oh, questions are over?
What time is it?
She was actually reaching to push your laptop
Oh
on.
no.
No.
Question. Go ahead. Go
I'm
for it.
curious, so at Google, it sounds like, you guys are still looking for unicorns like every other company. How are you filling that technical gap, or what are you guys solving for? Are you folks coming in, or?
How do we hire Salesforce developers at Google when there's a big shortage? So we do it the way a lot of other companies have started doing it, especially in the Silicon Valley. We stopped hiring Salesforce developers. We hire developers and then we teach them Salesforce. Or we take people in-house and we train them. And so if you want to apply as a Salesforce developer on my team right now, like the position, like you wouldn't even know you're applying for a Salesforce developer position. It'd just be an engineering position. And then you find out that it was a Salesforce developer.
And how long do those people take to get ramped up on your team?
How long do they take to get ramped up? Good question. Man, that anywhere like from 6 to 12 months to more. It's very difficult.
It's a
All
long
right.
time.
Yeah, there are two questions here. Go for it.
Just quickly, so we're talking admin, developer, architect. In Salesforce, obviously, there's the marketing cloud, and there's other silo things which are becoming more integrated. How relevant is it to expose yourself and obtain certifications in that, so that as an architect, you have overarching understanding of those connectivity of data?
Good question. Good question. How important are the non-Salesforce certifications like marketing and like CPQ or something? I'll say just for inflating your certification count, they're important. If you say you have 13 certifications, like no one cares what they are. Like, oh my gosh, it's 13. That said, like getting the architect certification, like
just learning in this track, seeing what certified technical architects have been saying, like, they are not going to ask you questions about, Pardot or marketing stuff when you're taking that track. That said, on the job, I would consider it very, very important. Understanding just, the landscape of enterprise companies. I will do more questions at the end. I want to make sure I get through the next part. All right. So let's say you've chosen the path admin, developer, or architect. How can you, what resources should you look at to either force yourself on that track or, just go as deep as possible? Let's start with admin. So these are the resources. These links are clickable. I'll share this presentation as well. These are or pictures, yeah. Or these are the resources I've sort of gathered over the years that I consider the best of the best in the industry. Definitely Trailhead. Definitely the success community. This one is actually a surprise to me. So I have 4,000 answers on the success community. I'm very proud of that. I spent a lot of time doing that. I probably learned more doing that than I ever did doing anything else. You're just answering random people's questions on the internet and you see how other people solve it. I learned so much there. And you wouldn't believe how competitive it is getting on there. There are people with, 40,000 answers. Man. All right. Admin Hero. That's a blog by a gentleman named Brent Downey. Superb. Talks about all aspects of admin, not just the technical part, but the business part. Even has articles about, hey, if you want to become a freelance consultant, check it out. There's a Udacity course on learning Salesforce. It's called Intro to Salesforce App Development. Fantastic. It's free. It's also the Fundamentals workbook. This is notorious Salesforce workbook. It's the recruiting app. If you've ever gone through that, that just touches every single part of being an admin, and I just love it. Let's talk about architect ones. And we'll do developer after this. But architect one's a little bit more difficult, right? Because it's something that's relatively new and relatively untouched. There was a question earlier, what's the best way to become an architect? Work at a big company with a big Salesforce org, right? Not just big company, but big Salesforce org. Or a consulting company that works, that has big Salesforce org clients. Architect Academy, Salesforce University, superb, we have a lot. Destination success this year. I said, so I'm taking the architect track this year, and without question, it's the best training I've ever taken in my life. I've learned things that I will never learn searching on Google or from other people or just finding the deepest corners of the internet. I'll never, ever learn them. But I learned them here this week. So if you want to become an architect, there's no question about it. Even if you have to pay out of your own pocket, I would do it. I'm not kidding there. Salesforce MVP, why do I say that? If you're a Salesforce MVP, you get certifications for free, and you're gonna have to take a lot of certifications to get them. I think it's literally, if you never fail an architect certification, you're gonna spend $10,000 just on the cert. Right, that's $400 each cert plus $6,000 for the board. Serious money. So you might get better ROI if you become in. That's a different story though. Let's talk about lastly development. All right, so you want to be a developer. How do you learn to be a developer? And I'm specifically aiming this at people who do not have development experience, people who didn't go to college and have a computer science background, people like me, you might have a marketing background, you have no business coding, but you want to become a coder. Here's what you do. Go to Salesforce user groups, developer user groups, even if you don't know how to code at all. Because you're gonna meet people who are also learning, and you're gonna pick up on things, and you're gonna be inspired. I'd say the user groups I go to, maybe half the crowd, the developer ones, maybe half the crowd, maybe more, are not Salesforce developers. They just want to become ones. Shameless plug, my website in the middle, SLPC99. I have tutorials that teach you how to code. Check it out. That stuff's free. Developer forums, just like the success community for the admins, developer forums for developers. This one's gonna be a little bit more difficult because there's more difficult problems there to solve, but I still recommend checking it out. You will still learn from it as you try to solve other people's stuff. This gentleman right here, Luke Kushnik, New York City, developer user group leader, he started something called an Apex workshop. It is at least a 5-part series where he starts at the beginning, and it's just webinars where he teaches you how to code. Very, very nice. And also, the Rad Woman Code School. So if you're a woman and you want to learn to code, there's this 12-week program. It's all free. They assign you a mentor. There's assignments, all this stuff. Join that program, and they will help you become a developer. Highly recommend it. And this is a truly shameless plug. If you do not want to deal with any of that, I have video courses where I teach you how to become a developer. You usually have to pay for it, but email me, you can have it for free. Tell your friends.
I've actually used it, and it actually is pretty cool. So.
Help me pass.
I know that guy, I paid him. All right. Thank you very much. Here's my contact information. Add me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Shoot me an email. Happy to talk. Any questions? Question. Boom.
So, in your opinion, when you're thinking about the goal of being an architect, you want to work for these big companies, or you want to work where you're consulting, do you think it's better to work for Salesforce proper, or to work for one of the mega consulting companies?
If you want to be a technical architect, should you work for Salesforce or mega consultant? 50% of certified technical architects work for Salesforce. So that immediately tells you a lot. I think Salesforce has a great farm system for getting people to certification. That is probably the path of least resistance if you want to get it. If you can get that position at Salesforce. Assuming getting that position is just as easy as getting a consultant position. Yeah, that said, once you do get the certification, you're probably going to end up working at a large consulting company because they're going to pay big bucks. Big bucks. Questions? Other questions? Boom.
So, right now I'm a senior admin. I manage developers and a bunch of companies for a large corporation. I'm eventually going to get a technical architect, but I really don't want to be a developer and leave my career path. What, in your mind, how much time do you need to be spending managing code, developing code, in order to achieve that ultimate technical architect goal?
So if you do not know how to code, how much of it do you have to learn to become a technical architect?
I mean, literally, I'm problem solving with developers to help them improve their code.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well as and working with administrators. But I don't want to quit my job as a developer for 3 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't think you have to learn to code to become a technical architect. Just if you look historically, that has been the case a majority of the time. That said, like if you work with developers and you understand like the technical trade-offs they're making, like if you can answer like when to use like a before trigger versus an after trigger, or if like you know when to use like static variables or something like that, then maybe you're on a maybe you know enough, or you're on a path where you can learn enough, or you're going to be fine. And the mock review boards, they have not been asking like very specific technical questions, but they have been asking questions where you may need to understand like the coding architecture. Do you have one trigger per object? Do you have multiple triggers per object? Things like that. If you can answer those, then you might be good. Yeah. Other questions? Questions?
Slide deck, where are you gonna have it?
Slide deck, how am I gonna share this? I actually don't know. I'm gonna figure that out. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Question?
I'm kind of doing a little backwards. What are you talking about? My company basically years ago gave us a book, said 30 days, figure out Salesforce. I'm writing that by the end of the year.
Nice.
So we've been straight customized code, but we have no admins. We have 10 developers, no admins. And so I'm here and actually I'm on my own dime because they wanted me for 3 years if they paid for it. So I said, no, I'll just go myself.
I respect that a lot. Nice.
And so I'm like, does that make sense? Like, this kind of going evolving backwards almost.
Does it make sense?
Part of the reason honestly I do is because I do like to work with people. I gotta like look away from the computer and talk to human beings for a little while to be the happiest.
Hey, no, don't feel like you have to become a developer. I definitely don't wanna say that. I don't think it's normal to have 10 developers and no admins. I don't.
Literally is what the situation is.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So if I were in your shoes, what I would do, I would take up the admin path very seriously, and I would own it. I'd be like, look.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's pretty much what I'm doing.
Take it out 100%. Just like.
Yeah, because it seemed like the developer was where you're pushing towards. I'm like.
Yeah. Hopefully this helps you with that. Question.
So you said in Google you're no longer posting the Salesforce developer positions, you're just posting this generic developer. How to find those? Like, to generate one generated.
Yeah. Only way to really know is to follow my website. I don't have ads on it, so I don't make money if you do it. But I usually say, hey, this is a Salesforce development position. Apply to it, even though it doesn't say Salesforce anywhere in the job description. That's really, or if you know someone else who works at Google, who works on my team.
Are your positions remote?
No, we don't like remote.
Plan on adding any more courses to your Apex Academy on Pearl site?
Good man. Yeah, I'm working on number 4 right now.
Take your time. It was a really good series. Help me pass.
Thank you. I have a bunch of t-shirts for women, actually.